Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the spot, the Stacked After Hours spot. I am your host, Natalie Cosby, and welcome to the show for Grown Folk Talk. Hmm. Somewhere along the way, we got really good at holding it together. Careers, relationships, responsibilities, image. Gen X, we figured it out. We became dependable, resilient, and even successful on paper. But here's the question we're really not asking. Are we actually living or are we maintaining? Because you can have the job, the house, the reputation, and still feel disconnected, still feel tired, still feel like something is missing. And that's why tonight's conversation matters, because tonight's guest is someone who, on paper, has all the access. But what makes his story interesting is he didn't stop there. Charlie Lewis Jr. is an award winning associate broker at Compass. He's been on the New York real estate scene since 2005, closing over 600 million in sales and ranking as one of the top 4% brokers in the city. You may also have seen him on Selling New York, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, hell, even Essence. So, yes, he knows success. But what I appreciate about Charlie, he started asking a deeper question. Do you really like the life he's built? And now he's the author of No Apologies, Love the Way You Live Without at Any Age, and the creator of Love the Way You Live brand, focused on helping people not just achieve more, but actually live in alignment with who they are. And here's something I love. He's even crossed into culture. He's been on the Netflix series Forever, and the character that represents him is Uncle Charlie, who is inspired by him, which was created by his longtime friend Mara Barak Akil. And that really speaks to who he is at his core: community, connection, and just showing up fully. He's also deeply connected because he is Howard University, honey. He is Mr. Alumni. He has been a leader, and really helping to shape a network of over 80,000 alumni across the world. So tonight, we are not just talking about success. We are talking about alignment, wellness, identity, and what it really means to live the life you want without no apologies. So let's get into it, and let's welcome Mr. Charlie Lewis to Stacked After Hours.
Ha! What's
Hi.
happening?
What's happening? I am excited, honey. I am excited for this combo tonight, Mr.
Yes.
Charlie, Uncle Charlie, Professor Charlie. You have so many aliases. It's crazy.
Hey,
Mr.
I'm
Love
just
the Way You Live.
hey, I'm just trying to get the people what they need and what they want.
And you also gave yourself what you need and what you wanted. Let's start there. So,
Yes.
Charlie, what was the moment you realized I needed to live differently, just not success? What
Mhm.
was that?
The moment when you get that's here you go. It's a
I
loaded
know it's a
question.
loaded question. I know.
Yes, it's a loaded question because it's layered on how you live your life and how you see your life and how you really live and say, hey, this life that I'm living, is it authentic to me?
Mm.
Am I living it for me or am I living it for someone else? So many people out here live a life mostly for our parents, doing the things that they said that we should do. And as in your opening, you said, hey, we have the success, We are moving. We're the generation that came up and got beautiful kids that's going to private school and doing all the things. But are you truly loving the way you live? Are you truly living authentically as far as what you want to do and not living for someone else? And what I find in real estate after 21 years and people confiding in me and having real conversations with me, you realize that people are suffering in silence. And you realize that everybody's story is unique in its own, and they're suffering differently out in, but they clothe it's they're hiding it in a different way, So there are people who get married that didn't want to get married. There are people that have kids that really didn't want to have kids. There are people still out here living on the DL and having different 2 and 3 different lives. So when do you get off of that hamster wheel and really just start living authentically? Or is it too painful for a lot of people? And what I find is that a lot of people don't want to do the work to let go of the trauma and to begin to live authentically because they feel as though it's too much work. My journey started back in 1992 when my best friend Carl Touchtone told me that I was angry. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. And so back then I was like, I'm angry. He was like, yeah, you angry and you need to do something about that. And so as I always said, we didn't have the internet back then. But what I did have was Oprah. And Oprah was the one that I went to and we listened. And she had Deepak Chopra on her show one day. And he had his books on talking about his life and talking about healing and all of that. And that's when I began my journey. I read his book. I went to the bookstore, got his book, started talking about the book. Read the book, and then I really started working and figuring out what it was that I needed to do in order to heal myself. So that's when the journey began.
I call us the self-help. We are the self-help book generation, child. That's Gen Xers. And we're always trying to figure out, I know I've been doing this probably since trying to figure out what's going to make me feel whole. Right. So when you write something that says no apologies, I always was like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean when you say no apologies? Because I feel like go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the book was going to be called Double Nickels. Love the way you live at any age. And I did a little marketing study because of my marketing background. And I realized there is no, I was like, double nickels. And I did a study and everybody was like, and I was like, do you understand it? And they were like, no, I kind of really don't. And I was like, well, it's, like when you get to 55, you start looking at your life differently. And everybody was like, yeah, oh, now I get it. Yeah, I get it. And I was like, too many people were questioning it. And then I didn't want to limit the readership of the book because that's why I said that at any age, love the way you live at any age, because there are certain people that can be on their journey in their 20s. Some 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Some of it get it right at their 70s, and some people get it right when they're going into their grave. Okay. And it's just about when it hits you, when you want to do the work and when you feel like you're able and capable of doing the work. I always say we live in an environment from 0 to 18 that was told how we were going to live because we're living with our parents. So you're kind of given the life, you can't make the decisions that you want to make. You start deprogramming your life for the rest of your life. When you leave the nest, until then, you're deprogramming yourself from that environment. So if you grew up in an emotional, unstable household, you're going to have emotional instability in your life. And so you're going to have to figure out how in the hell to, do the work. So therefore you can become emotionally stable. Emotionally stable, excuse me. And so I think doing the work and you getting to that point, you have to realize, it's something about it eats inside of you that you're like, I can't continue to live this life the way I'm living it. and therefore I have to do something about it. And so when I read his books, I started there first, and then I started going to my men's group through the church because that's what I knew. I was brought up in the church. And so I started doing that. And then I just started, unpacking things left and right, year after year after year. And then once you start getting into relationships, you realize that you're at fault for some of the things in those relationships. And people start pointing things out to you in relationships. And you're like, I need to do a little bit more work on myself. I'm not who I think I am. And so unless you have those aha moments, I think that's maturity, a sign of maturity, when you know that you might be more the toxic one in the relationship than the one that you think you got it together. Because we all think we got it together until somebody points it out that, yeah, you might be suffering from a little bit of too much ego, or you might be suffering from a little abandonment issue or detachment issues and things like that.
Right. It's funny because when I always when I think about just like like doing the work, people always feel like, okay, what do I need to do to fix it? Right. Instead of unpacking it. And what was the first thing that you started to unpack for yourself, to just give folks an example of like something that just comes to your mind where you're just like, okay, this is one of the things that I know. And you talk about it in the book, but I feel like it's one of those things that just kind of started to turn you into, instead of just fixing it, you started to like really do the work. And
Well, so I discussed in the book that I was HIV positive, right? And so by being HIV positive, what I realized, and that was over 30 years ago, that I was angry, like when Carl said I was angry. And I was angry for a number of reasons. I had about 25, 30 friends of mine die in their 20s. So when a lot of people were starting to build families, I was out here in the hospital with my friends at their bedside and not knowing what was going to happen next, because we were just in that AIDS epidemic at the time, and people not knowing exactly what things were going to happen. The government was not really working in your favor. They were stigmatized in the Black community. There was so much stigma, and it's such a taboo topic back then that it was really, a lot of us had to suffer in silence. Okay. And we had community amongst ourselves, but it was only amongst us that we were having that dialogue with. Fast forward, when you came out of that era, and start to date, and I started to feel comfortable, because by that time I moved to New York, and I started to saying, hey, I want to have a relationship, because there was a period where you did not know what was going to happen with your life. Okay. It was that dramatic. The doctor who I had when I first got diagnosed said that I only had 6 years to live. So that impacts your life differently. So I was like, well, am I going to have a reckless life, or am I going to live a life with purpose? And I'm going to live a life with true meaning for these last 6 years, quote unquote. And so for me, that was enough for me to say, hey, when I thought about all of that, I said, you know what, I want to live, And my friends on their deathbeds, the first thing I remember, Tim Douglas, God rest his soul, he said, go live your life and live it. And I always loved the way Tim lived his life. But at that point in time, I was always nervous, scared, or whatever the case may be. But by the time I got diagnosed, they were coming out with the cocktails and stuff like that. What a lot of people don't realize, AIDS didn't really kill people. It was the drug AZT. It wiped out the white blood cells. So you didn't have anything to fight the virus with. And that's really what killed everybody. So people are living today on PrEP and all of the different meds that you have. Now there's a shot that you can take twice a year, and all the things. But for Black women, I tell Black women today, which is very important for Black women because they're the largest group that contracts HIV and AIDS is that protect yourself and get on PrEP if you're going to be sexually active. PrEP will prevent you from
Get on PrEP before you, but wait,
yeah,
really?
yeah. You get on PrEP. If
Damn.
you're sexually active, you need to be on PrEP. If you're not sure with the guys that you're dealing with, you can get on PrEP, and that will prevent you from catching HIV. So it's one pill a day, and you're good. You won't have to worry about that. And a lot of women wish they'd known that, but they don't know that because we don't have real open conversations and communications about sexual health. So
That to me is mind blowing, Charlie, because I feel like this is part of, I think, also our ignorance is our general. Well, I think we think we're protected. We live in the shadows, and we're just like, oh, I know who I'm dating. I know
no,
who I'm dealing with.
no, you don't. You don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know who you're dating out here, and you need to protect yourself. If you're going to be celibate, then be celibate. But if you're going to be sexually active, and you're going to be in areas such as Atlanta, DC, New York, areas, you need to protect yourself. And you can protect yourself either with a condom or you can protect yourself with PrEP. All gay guys are on PrEP. That's why the HIV, that's why everybody is negative who's gay, basically on PrEP, because they don't contract the disease. But the DL guys,
Us heterosexual people are living in it, honey. We are living with the wool covered over our eyes because we feel like we are untouchable.
exactly. And so bottom line is, to me, you know what? COVID was like straight people's HIV. Because it was like, it was a stigma. You got COVID. Remember when it first came out?
Yes.
And things like that. And so it was really crazy. So I was like, that is really, really interesting. But to make a long story short, your sexual health is really important. And so you really need to take care of it. Go to the doctor, talk to your doctor about what you need to do if you're going to be sexually active. And so, and for Black women, the reason why they do contract HIV is because they deal with guys who go back and forth. And some of the guys who are on the DL do not protect themselves and they are not on PrEP. So then therefore they pass it on. So that's that. Now, what happened with me in my life, once I got out of all of that, once the fall came out and once they came up with the cocktail and you said, oh, I got a life I can live. What does that mean? Well, the trauma is already set. You got friends that have died, so you're angry from that.
Right.
You can't date out loud and openly because it's still a taboo, right? You can't walk down with the loved ones that you love and love authentically and love with with passion and just go out and live your true life and your true self. Because I found out that, I came about knowing that I was gay around the age of 8, 9 years old. And so that was before anybody knew anything about a Bible, before I knew anything about a Bible, before anything of like that. I was not in any environment or anything like that. So for me, that's when my journey began. And so when I first got to New York and started dating, that's when I realized how angry I was and how I was not in the position really to date anybody because I need to do so much work on me,
Yeah. You know what? As I was reading the book, and when you talked about this healing, you talked about, like, you went through, like, there's these principles of wellness, and I'm a wellness person. But when you broke it all the way down from emotional to physical to occupational to environmental. I want to kind of talk a little bit about emotional wellness because we always throw around these terms, emotional intelligence and all this other stuff. But how do we know? Or what do you as you experience this book and you go and you talk to people, what if you witness around emotional health and how it's being used for people either to move forward or get stuck? I know that's a loaded question too,
I think, out of all the dimensions, all of the 8 dimensions that I put in the book, and as you name them, emotional, social, spiritual, financial, environmental, intellectual, occupational. you realize that I think I started out the book with emotional wellness and I ended the book with spiritual wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that intentionally and we did that on purpose because the emotional wellness part, you have to have a sense of, you have to come to a sense of emotional maturity. So then, therefore, you can deal with all of the other dimensions. When you start to do the work on yourself, you really start to say, you start the healing process with yourself. So when you're looking at social wellness, where you're dealing with your friend group, you can see exactly who's good for you and who's not.
Right.
Because what tends to happen, if you are emotionally immature, you're going to tend to socialize with people who are not good for you.
Mm. Can you say
And
that for the folks in the
yes, if your emotional immaturity is at an all-time low, your social environment, you're going to hang out with people that's not going to want you to grow. That's
Yeah.
not going to see that the old you that they when they met you 5 years ago is not the same you 5 years later, where you're on a path to growing and doing other things, because people always want to be your friend at where they met you.
Yeah. Yes.
And they never want to, when
Sorry.
you start to grow, sometimes you have to leave them back behind, because if you don't, you will see how why is everybody being so negative toward me? Why is everybody being so
Right.
negative toward me? And that is not where you want to be. You want to be, when you leave a space and go into a different place, you want to have people that's going to ride with you in that season and in that place. And so sometimes you have to leave those friends behind. And what I see today, which is very important, today what you see is, for instance, this whole Meg Thee Stallion and Clay
Oh
Thompson
my God.
thing that's happening.
Oh
You
my God.
have people who see her one way,
And people see you Clay and the
and people see Clay one way, right?
mm-hmm.
And then people see Meg of, okay, they want to degrade her for all her
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, people that she dated, and they want to call her all kind of hoes and things like
Right.
that.
Because she twerks and all
But
this
she
other
twerks and
foolishness.
she
Yes.
sings about being a hottie and a baddie. So
Right.
she's instantly labeled, in the way she dressed, she's instantly labeled those derogatory names.
Mm-hmm.
And then they protect Clay because of misogyny and say, oh, well, he's the greatest. You know, she didn't make him. He made himself. He's a part of the Splash Brothers. He's this, he's that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when two people come together, sometime in a space, in a place, some people might have to lead without ego. And you can only do that if you are emotionally mature. And if you're not emotionally mature, it's never going to work. Because in relationships, things are always going to change. My sister, who is a bishop, always would say, she would do marriage counsels, and I
Mm-hmm.
always remember her advice. She would always say, there are people, if she married, counseling a couple, she would always ask them, well, if the man is making the money today, and if the woman is not making as much as he is, but let's just say in 3 years she's making more, how is he going to deal with that? How
Right.
do you handle that? And it's real conversations that you have to have early on in your relationships. And I think what's happening today and where we are today when it comes down to emotional maturity is that we need to start to do the work, to realize that we live in a modern world. Women today are different from our mothers and our grandmothers because women have options. And if women want to be with certain men, men have to understand that they have to grow and their conversations have to be a different conversation. And they also have to check their egos at the door, because a lot of times, women today, and Black women especially, are highly educated and the most educated. And it happens in our community more than in the white community. And the reason being is because the white man usually is the number one breadwinner in society.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the white woman usually does not make what the white man makes.
Yep.
The problem we have in our
It's
community is because it takes two to really live a great,
life.
prosperous, successful life, to bring in them two incomes in. And then if the man slips or doesn't make the money that the woman starts to make or grow or whatever, then the dynamics shift and change. And that's where the animosity and the friction happens. So we need to start having that real conversation in relationships as it pertains to where we are mentally with how we raise our family, and understanding that dynamics behind what makes our decision making different. So
It's, you know what, it's funny because I feel like as we get a little bit deeper into relationships and we talk about us Black
mhm.
folks, I always this con our con the when I hear Black excellence and we want to try to like make sure our lives are curated, everything is perfect, everything's in a line, we do everything we're supposed to, we have the education, we have the house, we have this, we have that, and then you look up, like you said, and you're not happy. What does that mean today when we hear that term, or when
well,
you think of the term of Black excellence?
Well, like I said, Black excellence is a great thing. You know, Black joy is resistance, as we all say,
Mhm.
and especially when our audience, you know, I think white people cannot understand how we are resilient with what we've had and how we maintain and how we grow and what we do. But occupational wellness is exactly what you just mentioned, which is when you get the job, you get the title, and you become the CMO or you become the CFO, and that is what you dreamed of and you strive for, and you got excellent. The problem is when you let that job define who you are as the person. The job doesn't make the man or the woman. You make the job. The company needs you. They need your expertise. They need your skill. The work is only 20%, I call it, of the tree of your tree of life. You have your family, you have your spiritual being, God or whoever you call it. You have work, you have your personal relationship, and then I always say, then you have your what's the fifth one that I always say? Work, family, friends, your
Friend,
friend
your
group,
social, your
your
social
social
network.
network,
Mhm,
right? So work is 20% of that, you
mhm.
know. But sometimes we let it be 80% of us. We let it
Why do you think we let that become is it because that's where our
because we're
money comes
striving.
from
Yeah, I mean,
and our importance? Because people
we
get caught up. We love a title, honey.
we
We
live
live for the title. We live
right.
for the title and the accolades.
We live in a capitalistic society, and in that capitalistic society comes the stress of striving to be successful. And
Mhm.
if you grew up poor, you don't want to ever be poor again. And if you
Right.
see that education and this job is the ability to get you that job and get you out of poverty, then you're going to stand on that. And what tends to happen, you tend not to think about the collective. You tend to think about yourself. And you never get anywhere in life when you think about yourself. There are so many different scenarios of where you can see where things are happening in society now, where people were pressed because they had a position and they couldn't bounce back from that position. And then therefore they go and cause harm, i.e., Justin Fairfax, who was the lieutenant governor, and it was reported that
Lord
he
have
could
mercy.
not get back, he could not find his footing back into, you know, the world, corporate world, I guess, or whatever. I
Mhm.
don't know,
Because of the supposedly the allegations, right?
because of the allegations and stuff. So I don't know. I'm speaking on just hearsay.
Mhm.
But if it is to be true, and then his wife being the dentist, him Male ego gets in the way, him not finding his footing. He embodied everything about that job, and that job was what he wanted, and it made him who he was as an individual. And when he no longer had that title, he didn't know how to cope. And the reason being is because he never focused in on himself.
Right.
Who was the true self? And so for me, I realized that with the help of my parents, because the help of my father always told me, go work for yourself. He never said go work for the man. He said, you can go into corporate America, that's great. But the bottom line is you're going to make more money working for yourself, or you're going to be stress-free working for yourself. It's just going to be a different type of stress, because it's going to be about you taking care of your own business. And so coming out of that entrepreneur environment, that's what led me to start my own marketing firm in 2002. And ever since then, I've been an entrepreneur. So for the last 24, 25 years, I've been doing this on my own, and I've let myself, I get to define who I am.
Right.
I never have to let someone define me. And so I have freedom of expansion, freedom of learning, freedom of being my authentic self. When you start to grow and you start making the money in real estate, those were the times when I can start to say to certain clients, well, I don't like the energy that client is breaking. I can elect to part ways with that particular person, because you give yourself that space. But when you create a lane for yourself, as opposed to getting caught up by the dollar, or be caught up by, I'm going to always be making money here or there, then that tends to happen. And that's when people get trapped. And I think what's happening now with all these women getting laid off and men getting laid off, people, and I talk about it, the power of pivoting. Mm-hmm. You gotta know how to pivot. But if you don't know what your passions are, if you don't know what your purpose is, where are you going to go? So I always say, you got to lean into your passions to find out your purpose.
And how do you know what, Charlie? I love that, because I wonder, like, I've been the person who's constantly leaning into my passions and never stopped. Like, my work was just work.
Right.
I always understand. When I thought about Black excellence, I was like, isn't it also developing our wellness? I know it's about developing our successes, but I feel like the scales are not balanced anymore.
Yeah. I think it's so hard. Look, life is hard out here today because things are getting very expensive. No matter how much money you're making, things are rising. Rent is rising, mortgage is rising, food costs is going up, cost of a car. I went to go I was at the dealership, and I looked at the new X5, because I'm a Beamer guy, and I saw 85,000. I was like, for what? 85,000? And I was like, is this the tariff? What is going? Like, everything is expensive. So everywhere you go, if you go out to eat, you're gonna spend $20 for lunch, damn near. Lunch used to cost you $10 for the most part.
Baby, it's double.
Now it's 20. You go out for dinner. You used to be able to go out for dinner for $25, $30. Now that's 50, 60, 75, 100. So everything has just gone up. And so in order to keep up with that lifestyle, people got to work. You got to hustle. You got to make different jobs. You got to have side hustles. You got to be, just out there. And I think the way we are in this world, things going to have to collapse. And things are going to collapse based on where we're going with this war, because people don't know it yet, but the petrodollar is going to be taken away from us. And at the end of the day, our market is going to collapse. So on a real estate note, if you got an asset out there and you think you want to sell it, I think it's the perfect time to sell right now.
And there's that part.
Yeah, because you're going to get the most money you're going to get today than you're going to get 6 months or 9 months from now.
I love it. So, Charlie, I always wonder when you talk about these things of these 8 branches of wellness. I'm gonna call them branches. Like, I was talking to a girlfriend today, and she called me exactly about this. She was trying to pivot. She was miserable. She's like, how do I, and she's got another side gig that she loves and she can do with her eyes closed. But she's like, how do I get from under this? Because it's emotionally breaking me down and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, I have an expiration date when I'm leaving, but financially, it's killing me. It's killing my spirit. So as you
Mm,
talk about the pivot sounds good, but
hmm.
how do you really start to make that pivot happen?
You have to start out with a plan. As we always say, you got to hatch a plan.
Hatch a plan.
You got to hatch a plan. First of all, you got to hatch a plan. You got to understand where you're going. So if you're changing industries, which is totally new and which gives people a little pause because it's hard to be risk averse in this economy. People don't know what's going to be next, right? So people don't even know taking a new job. We're dealing with a young generation now. I see them and they don't even understand sometimes. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to take a new job right now. And I'm like, you sure you want to take a new job right now in this marketplace? And why I say that is because last in, first out. Okay.
Yes.
And if you've been at a company for a period of time right now, you might just want to stay there and see what this war is going to do. And that's what us that's been through a couple of cycles of a down economy, up economy, down economy, up economy. We've seen that, so we know things go up and down. And we haven't had a down economy since like 2008, right? Well, COVID kind of threw things up a
Yeah.
little bit, but it wasn't like the economy crashed. And everybody could see what was happening with that. But now we really don't know what's going to happen because things are really changing on a global perspective with this oil because things are different. So I always say hatch a plan first. Give yourself 6, 9, or 12 months to make the shift. You have AI now. You can throw up in AI. I am looking to transition from A to B. How should I go about doing it? AI will lay that out for you and it will give you a plan on what it is that you need to do and how you need to set things up. So of course, you're going to look at your finances, right? Second of all, you need to figure out whatever industry you're going into that you have your market, your like if you're going out to start your own marketing firm, can you take 2 or 3 clients with you from the existing company that you're working with, and there's not going to be a conflict of interest? So it's all the necessary work that you have to do at this point in time to see exactly what you need to do, okay? And then go from there. And once you go from there, it's a process. But being an entrepreneur, if that's where she's going, you become your accountant, your lawyer, your business developer, your attorney, all the things, right? And you're the project manager, you're everything. So I don't know exactly what she is. I would have to talk to her to say, hey, how to make that pivot. But the bottom line is you can do it, and you're gonna have to do it. Or also too, you can partner up with someone that might be out of work, and y'all might be able to come together with a business decision, a business model to work. And I think that Black women are going to come out of this and going to be very successful and even more independent and even more they're going to be more resilient but more independent, and you're going to find more entrepreneurs because you can do a lot on the internet today that you couldn't do before. And so I think Black women you're going to find a lot of women that was once working in corporate that's going to be able to flip it, and they'll figure it out because they are, in that mindset of how I'm going to, keep up the lifestyle that I want to keep up. And so it's going to be things done behind closed doors, and you just have to do it. So as you go to those empowerment meetings and those empowerment conferences, you need to start collectively thinking how you build businesses with one another, because that's the most important thing as a partner talking about, well, I'm here and I'm here on the basis of Target or whoever, whatever company you're working with. You need to be thinking independently about yourself and how you move in the world.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit because we talked about Black excellence and just people going into these spaces and going through trying to figure out where they are. And I think a lot of people get inspiration from social media. then it becomes layered, then it goes into a space of possibly comparing or going into that mental headspace. I love how you talk about comparison versus a curated life. Can you
Mm.
kind of, because I feel like, we
Ooh, yes.
honey, we
That is
get
that that
into we
that
get
look.
into our full lives and we realize we want to be that other person's highlight reel.
And the
Like,
thing is, you cannot fall into the comparison model. The comparison model will get you trapped, and you will be sitting there scrolling for days trying to keep up because their life is not for you. Your life is meant for you, not for, what's meant for you is meant for you, right?
mhm.
And getting on that comparison, it's one thing to get inspiration from someone, but it's also too, you can't follow or copy someone's life because you don't know what they're going through, So I always say you have to curate everything you do in life. Curate your friend group, curate your spirituality, curate what your work and where you're going. Everything to me is about how you plan out your future for yourself and not letting anybody distract you. Some people call it a vision board. Some people call it, writing and journaling every day to keep track of where they progress. So you have to figure out what model works for you. But the bottom line is, when I think about who I'm around, I think about the friends that I curate with. I want to be with friends who are strategic thinkers, who I can always throw ideas off of, who are always going to challenge me. And I always say in life, you need two G's: the curiosity gene and the vanity gene.
Okay, give me okay, I get the curiosity. Give me both. I'm
the,
hollering. First off, the vanity gene, I'm hollering.
the curiosity gene is intellectual wellness. It's
Got it.
where you are always thinking about what's next, what's your next move, living life, but living life with intention and not just existing. So many people say, oh, I'm going to retire at 55. Then what you're going to do? Oh, well, now I want to travel. Why haven't you been traveling 5 or 10 years
Along.
ago? Now you old, you're going to go to Europe. You can't climb those steps. You're
Ah,
overweight. You
he's
got bad knees and all that kind of stuff. Now you can't even go, or you go 6 months later, and next thing you know, you laid up somewhere. So don't do that. The curiosity gene keeps you thinking about life. It keeps you, finding a museum, learning a new language, thinking possibly of just moving out of your physical space and moving to another country and creating a whole new life for you and creating a whole new what that looks like for you. Those are the things that you should continue to live, because I think at the point of we live 0 to 50 for someone else, the rest of your years, you have all the wisdom now. You should be living, these should be your best days. These should be the days where you're living for you and really living with intention for you. The vanity gene is, the vanity gene is you're going to keep that weight off. You're going to look good. You're going to stay modern looking, even though you're 55, 60, 65. You're not going to look like you stuck in the time warp, but you're going to stay fresh. So then therefore you stay fit and it keeps you healthy. It's a good thing to have a little vanity, to be a little vain, because as you're being vain, it keeps you from diabetes, heart disease, and all the things. And you can go get those checkups and do all the things that you need. So I'm
I
about that.
always feel like people are afraid to put themselves out there. Like they're afraid, like, I don't want people, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to be this.
Where they
And
get
so
that from?
I think I've heard that. Like, I just want to
But where
make
did we get
sure,
that from?
I
We
just
get
want
that
to
from
make sure everybody's comfortable.
we get that from our parents, right? Where our
Hmm.
generation was the humble generation of we don't talk about ourselves, we let everybody else talk about us. But these kids today, they don't have that problem.
They do not.
They
They
will
do
walk
not
out and they would think, oh, I'm 35, I know everything in the world. And you're like, you don't have any lived experiences,
at all.
but you know everything, or when you really know nothing.
Yeah.
So what I find with that generation now, the millennials and Gen X, what is it? Gen Y, Gen
Gen,
Z, Gen
Gen
Z,
Z
that they are
and
searching for
Alpha.
community. They're searching for community, and they need community. Before we had the church, we could go to church and you could be a part of the church and you would be that. Well, people are not going to church anymore. So now you have to find your community. And that's why I say curate your friend group, curate the people around you. You want to create people who want you to do well, who want to be your cheerleader, who want to be in your corner. And that's who you should be searching and you should be looking for, even at this age in life. Because it's important to keep you mentally going and to keep your mind fresh and thinking about new ideas, because I think the world is changing underneath us so much that we don't know what's going to happen next.
Right.
And you got to stay and keep your eyes on the pulse. We cannot think that the world is going to be status quo. Things are changing too rapidly these days with AI, with Palantir, with Elon Musk and all these things that these guys are cooking up, and how they just want to get rid of humans and everything. We got to keep our hands on the wheel. And you want to be around people who are thinking like that and listening like that, and not people who are around you telling about, oh, I don't want to hear that mess, that stuff. But because you got to stay, if you want to be here, you got to stay here and you got to be in tune on what's going on.
I wonder, like, as you have gone through your transitions, now you are 59, 50, okay, 60, you better get it. That tight skin, I love it. So approach 60 loading.
Yes.
I wonder, and I always feel like this in social search. I know in my life, because I've moved different places, I've lived different places, my friendships have also changed over time. And so I always wonder, and you wrote this amazing passage about, you realize you're not the same person. So it requires something different of you and your surroundings. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like sometimes we keep people around because of time.
We do. And I mean, I know so many people that the reason why I went to Howard also too was because when I went on campus to tour, that was the first time that I was around. I'm from a small town, Statesboro, Georgia. And so I was always in an honors class, but it was always just me and Kim Palmer, Sherry McGrady, Wilbur Trimble, and Kim Lovett. Like, I can remember the names, right? To this day. Mm-hmm. And I'm meeting with them on Friday too, by the way. That's the funny part. So, but the thing is, it was only those people that I had that I knew, right? But then when I got to Howard, I was just like, this is where I want to be, because I saw so many different people and different looks and different styles. And I was like, yes, I knew there were smart Black people in the world, and this is where they are. And it just freed me up to realize that I just wanted to taste a little bit of you and a little bit of you and a little bit of you and a little bit of you, because I wanted to learn so much about who we were and the diaspora. And that's when I really started to learn about African and the Caribbean as well, because how it was exposed like that, and they had different people from all those countries. And so it just broadened my horizon to really make me lean into the diaspora and to really understand. What I realized, from when it comes down to friends and taking people with you or leaving people behind, I will always say people come in your life, like they always say, for a reason and for a season. And some people can come with you and some people can't. I have a lot of associates, but I have a very small, tight friend group. And that tight friend group, I know that's been there with me for many, many, many years. But when you curate your life, you really get to see those people, and you go through the things with those individuals, and those are your ride and die with you. So you just get exposed to that. I mean, I had the privilege of being exposed to that just because of so many people that I know. A lot of people will tell you, I don't have that many friends, or I don't have that much, based off where they live or whatever the case may be. But I always say, God put people in your life for you, because you can't do everything in life. You need examples. You need people to be around so you can see what are you going through, so I won't have to go through it. You don't have to go through everything, but I can see what you're going through to be
to make sure.
I'll be like, I don't want none of that.
Right.
So you gotta really retrain your thought process of like why people are in your life. It's not necessarily just the friendship, but it's also the lesson of the friendship. And that is what's important. And the lesson could be what they're doing and what they might be going through. So then, therefore, you would see how you would react to it if you had to go through it. Because what happens when you see certain people that you see your friends that might be dealing with their mother who's going through elder care or whatever the
Right.
case may be at this point in time in our life?
Right. Right.
And you could see the strain that's happening right now with them. And you could turn to your mother and say, well, my mother is healthy. But is your mother always going to be healthy? And so therefore, that will allow you to have a conversation with your parents to say, hey, let me turn. Do y'all have y'all information, your will together, your trust information? Or how if you were to get sick, do we have funds? Are we taking care of you in the house? What are we doing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are real grown-up conversations that you have to have in order to see things through in life. And that's why I say you don't always have to go through things, but you can see other people going through them. So therefore you can be better prepared.
Somebody said, don't.
What?
What did Ted say? He said, don't sell your assets, borrow against your assets because loans aren't taxed.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. And then a lot of people also take their assets all the way down to the $4,000, whatever it is. So everybody can get the Medicare or Medicaid. That used to be the old thing. I don't know if that still works today. My mom and dad are no longer here. So we had to we dealt with that. But my mom and dad, they passed real quick. They didn't want to be a burden. They were like, we out. Peace.
I have we're coming to a close, Charlie. But my one thing is like, what do you feel like people in our generation are missing to get to a point where that they are loving the way they live outside of like, what do you think are the one, what do you think is the one thing, especially Gen X? Because like I said, we've been successful, we've raised kids,
You
we're
good?
trying to figure out what's next. What do you see in within your community and just as you've been on this book tour?
What I've noticed, it's been different in every city because it's always the energy of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been with women, just a women's group that was like in their 60s, 70 retirees. And I could see in that group the people who were just lonely or their spirit was low. And then I could see the people in the room. It was like one side of the room was just gray. I don't want to say dead, but just no life in them. And then there was this table of women that you could see. They had the red glasses, the
They were
hair was
jazzy.
done. They were like done up, and I kept being attracted to that side of the room because the energy was there,
Right.
and it was because they was curious about life. Like I said, they were the vanity gene. They kept themselves up and kept themselves fresh. And they said, oh, they never bought into the old spirit. Never bought into the old spirit. Never saying, oh, I'm old. And so life is over for me. And I'm out of here. And and so I give up. You got to be careful. I never understood if you're going to go out here as a man and marry, have all these kids, and then never think about your own health and then die at 55, 56, 57 years old of heart attacks because you put so much stress on yourself, and you're not keeping fit. You got to be, to me, if you're going to go out here and create this family, then be mindful of yourself and your health, and so you got to stay healthy for the kids, right? You can't leave people behind. And it's too many, regularly what I'm seeing, too many brothers dying of simple stuff, prostate cancer. That's the easiest thing that you can cure or get rid of. And you're not going in and getting health checkups and stuff like that. We done lost 5 bison in the last 4 months because of health related things. And all of these people are in their 50s and they all were married with kids. And these were men. And it's just sad.
Can I ask this as a woman who's about to get married to a man who I yell to go to the doctor? What is it with brothers and them going to the doctor? Like I'm still trying to understand. I'm not saying you, but I see the resistance.
Afraid. You have to go to the doctor with your man. So you got to take him to the doctor. Okay. The bottom line is you got to take him to a black doctor too. Yeah. And most preferably take him to a black male doctor so he will feel comfortable so he can share. Because men have that camaraderie. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to go in there and ask those questions about and say, hey, what about this and what about that? And what you need to do, what needs to be a part of our ongoing a daily regimen is when you go to the gym, you need to have every day on your birthday, you need to do your yearly physical.
Yeah.
If you only go to the doctor that one time a year, make it on your birthday to give that to yourself. So therefore you can get your calcium test, you can get your A1C, A1C test, you can get all your your any checkups that you need. At 45 years old now, you need to get your prostate exam. All of the things, get your colon checked out. Those things are very easy to do. And it only takes one visit, only if you go one time. And then therefore we will save our whole generation of men because it's too many brothers. Like I said, it's too many young brothers because 55 to me is young.
It is.
It's young. And then now with the food and the pesticides and everything like that, we really have to make sure that we maintain a healthy diet. Number one, go to the gym. Number two, and like I put this in physical wellness and making sure that you have a plan for yourself. And then even with my doctors, the good thing about me that I get to go to and check out is because when I was diagnosed with HIV, it allows me to go to the doctor 4 times a year because I have to go every quarter to do my blood work and everything like that. So I use my health insurance. I go up in there, I be like, doctor, I need you to do this. He be like, what the hell you want now, Charlie? I be like, shit, I'm paying for this shit. You better give me all the checks, okay? And he just laughed. And I put him in the book because Dr. Mullen is the truth, Right. But as I always say, you want to get with a doctor that wants you to live. So find a PCP that wants you to live and careful about your health. And that is what you should do. You should have a PCP. You should have a dermatologist. You need a urologist if you're a male. You need an OB/GYN if you're a female. Of course, you know that. You need to have your podiatrist because your feet start getting bad when you get old. All these people you need to
and have. Your therapist, a life coach.
Your number one, you need to have a therapist.
Lord,
and black men, you can have a black therapist. There are black men therapists out there. And I say go to a black male therapist. You will never see me having to go to someone that doesn't look like me trying to tell me about me when you don't know my struggle and and what I've went through. So for me, I definitely will go to someone that looks like me. And that's what I did. And I went through my boy, John Taylor down in Philadelphia. I used to drive from New York to Philly and I would stay with him for 2 hours and get my therapy. And I'm like, you gonna fix me in 2 hours. And that's what I did. And then I would go back and he would laugh at me because I'm the type of person, if I'm gonna go see a therapist, I wanna go find out what the problem is so I can correct it and then I can move on. But I'm not a lifetime therapist where you're gonna keep I'm here because I'm doing the work continuously on me. And what I realized through this book and through my going to my book signings is that you're forever healing yourself.
You are
forever healing yourself. Because the reason why I did not want to put that I was HIV positive in the book, you know why? And this came up to the last minute, was because of my sisters. It was because of my sisters and me thinking about what their friends were going to say. What?
But
What?
Charlie, can I say something? And I've known you for a while. I learned you were HIV positive through the book. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is probably one of the most powerful things you could actually do because it shows you being a responsible Black man about your health. You're being
Mm-hmm.
truthful about your health, and it empowers us to be just honest about where we are, and we can live full despite the label that is on us. And I just want I cried when I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back to it. I was just like, you know what? I was like, this brother man is everything because he owns whatever has gone on with him. He owns it and embraces it and has curated this whole brand, but just a life of loving
But
the
you
way he
you know
lives.
what? And I'm glad you said that. I've in all the things I did in my life, I've never felt the victim. And I never
Yes.
blame anybody for my life. And anything that happened in my life, I took responsibility for it. And I think that is being a man. I think that is a man that why people trust me. I think
Mhm.
people share with me because I people honestly just open up to me because they see how free I am, and I really keep things in the vault with whoever I'm talking to.
Right.
And if you want to share something, that's you sharing it, right? But for me, I think there's vulnerability. That's a superpower for a Black man to be vulnerable, and not enough of us are. Because the two things that we are always labeled is lustful and being aggressive. But you never hear people talking about us being vulnerable and being able to share and being able to lean in and being able to have real authentic conversations with people and to really tell people about what their feelings are. Because of me laying out, putting all of my cards on the table basically and putting everything out there, there is nothing for me. That's why I can discern everything that I see.
Right.
Because when I see people coming up to me, I already know you hurting. I can see you
Mhm.
hiding that hurt. And my sister always said that to me. She said, you know what? You got the spirit of discernment. It's a blessing and a curse. And I see exactly. And I was like, well, what's the curse? I see the blessing part, but what's the curse part? And she was just like, you'll see, you'll figure it out.
What
And
is
what
it?
I
Have you
see,
figured out the curse?
I figure out the curse. I
What's
mean,
the curse,
it's
Charlie?
just you know too much too soon. Sometimes you don't want to know.
That's true.
You really don't want to know everything about something before it's already you, but I can already see where it's going to go and how it's
Yeah.
going to happen because
Yeah.
I am a person that studies human behavior. I am a person that studies the environment and humans around me because I really care about us as a people. Like
Mhm.
and I always ask God, why did you save me during all the course of all of this? And he said, because you got a mouth and you'll use it.
It's your purpose. This book is your purpose. Can I say that? And I think it's also this is what I see because I know you and I work for Charlie, y'all. But but the other thing is, it's just like you are living in your swag, like all of it. Like it embodies these 8 principles of wellness have just allowed you to like the fact that you say you're a Black man that lives in his vulnerability, that's not only like amazing, but it's sexy. It's just, it brings everything to a place where you just like, this is what vulnerability looks like in Black men
Yeah.
when they come full circle.
And it's you know what? And I love my life. And it is good. And you're right. I feel like the spirit in me when people look at me, people are like, you always smiling, you ain't never down. For the most part, yeah. I mean, I have my, every now and then get a little down day, because I'm human, right? But it ain't gonna be all day. It might be 3 hours of the day, but then I get out of that real. I can go on a walk and be like, okay, let me clear my mind. I too much. I care about the world right now too much, and sometimes I catch myself going down the rabbit hole of Instagram and be like, yo, it's just too much bad things happening to people, and I just don't like that, and that can weigh on me. So I have to remove myself from that because I don't like that being the I don't like bringing myself down with that because when I see people are not doing well or not prospering or whatever the case may be, especially us as a people, like I totally am about our community and in getting our community back and getting rid of that trauma in our community. So therefore we can be whole, and that nobody will be living, in shame and living and suffering in silence, because a lot of people take a lot of stuff to their grave, and it's just not, I think it's not even worth it. So that's what I mean.
It's not. So
Yeah.
somebody asked, is this on Audible?
It will be.
Okay.
Give
They want to hear it in your voice. I'm gonna get that
give me a week, because when I was supposed to do the Audible, I got sick and I lost my voice.
Okay.
And then I went on tour, and then it just, everything just boom, 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 boom. But it will be on Audible.
Okay. All right. We're coming to a close. I have what we call our fire round. So you got 20 seconds to answer these questions, Charlie. 20. I'm giving you 20 because I know you're gonna give me some words. What are you no longer apologizing for?
No longer apologizing for my directness.
Okay. Which wellness area do people neglect the most?
Emotional.
Okay.
And they do that because it's the one that they have to really work at.
Yes.
It's the one that you
gotta unpack that shit.
You got to unpack that shit. Because if you grew up and your mom and daddy, didn't treat you well, and or left you, of your daddy, you had a daddy that left you, and you got abandonment issues, and you don't really know why you got abandonment issues. Why people, you doing too much because people are walking out your life, or you staying with people too long because you don't want them to walk out your life. So you're changing who you are to be a person that you're not, because you don't want to be alone. Emotional wellness is the key. That's why I started out with that. That's why I want you to do. Yeah, that's why I want you to do a reflect and realign and write yourself that letter back to your 8-year-old, 10-year-old self of what you would want your life to be versus what it was. I think that's a powerful exercise.
I love that. Success or peace?
Peace.
Growth or comfort?
Growth.
One belief you think Gen X, our generation, needs to let go of?
Worrying about other people. Keeping secrets.
I want to be like, tell me more, but I said this is 10 seconds. Damn. Okay. One word for this next chapter of life. I'm gonna give you a sentence. One sentence. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, one word, what? Say that again.
One word for this next chapter of life. What's one word you use to describe this next chapter of life, or a sentence?
Wow. I can't do it in one word. Can I do it in a?
I said you can do it in a sentence.
Oh, I can do it in a sentence. Okay. Yeah. I think I will never retire because I'm passionate about all the things that I'm doing. And what I realize about this book, it has unleashed some of the suppressed creativity that I have deep down in me. So for me, the book and where I'm going in my next chapter in life is my creative genius or my creative juices, just letting them flow and being able to do so many different things. Because I had a wonderful call today with a wonderful brand that I didn't even think about, and it lasted 90 minutes. And I thought about things just as we were talking in the conversation, and like there's gonna be a whole layer.
We're about to have a show.
It's about a lot of things are going on.
Or Netflix. I can't wait.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of things that are moving in the direction that I never thought about. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities right now. So this is the beginning. So growth, yes, not comfort, growth. Growth doing the things that I want to do and things that I hadn't thought about. So that's what I love about it, because, like I said, at 59, hey, I feel like we just beginning again.
Leah Bird said, won't he do it?
Okay.
Won't
Yes.
he do it?
Yes. But I am loving that so much about this book and about the conversations that I'm having with people, and including tonight. Just all when I just start thinking about other things that I want to do in life, and that life is for the living, not life is just for sitting around existing. And yeah, so as many days as I'm here on this earth, you're going to be, the legacy of Charlie Lewis is going to be about building community and building the collective of the community and getting the community to heal. So that's that's my goal.
I love that. All tens across the board, baby.
Ends across the board.
Tens across the board. Yes. Thank you. This conversation hits you. Share it with someone.
Yes.
Share this book. Look, I didn't even get to read all the stuff. Share this book. Get it. You can get it on Amazon, but it actually goes directly to him.
Yeah, if you go to
him
me
get all the
directly,
money.
go to me directly here at Book Baby. But go to also too, you can go to Charlie Lewis
Yes.
NYC.com. CharlieLewisNYC.com.
Yes, and that's on all the posts. We got
And
it.
that's on all the posts. That's all my
Yes,
stuff.
sir.
Yeah.
There we have it. I don't got nothing else to say. I'm a student tonight. Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Uncle Charlie. I appreciated this, Brother
You're
Charlie.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right, y'all. We will see you guys soon. Charlie, do you have time for the after party? You got things.
Yes. No, let's go to the after party.
Okay, we're going to go into the after party. I'm going to drop the Zoom link in the chat and meet us there. All right. See you guys, and I will see you guys the end of next month. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. This was everything.
You're
We'll see
welcome,
y'all next
darling.
time on Stacked After Hours.
All right.
All right. Let me go into